How's it going, Diablo fans? So today I'm bringing you my Abattoir of Zir guide for my Arclash build. And one thing I want to point out here real quick is the footage you're seeing in the background is actually a tier 15 Abattoir of Zir. So this is actually quite beefy for this kind of build. If you play this build and you just want to run lower levels like, you know, tier 9s or tier 11s, it's going to be much faster. Like the tier 15 is pretty much already the highest tier you can run with this build. So keep that in mind when you think like the footage in the background goes like a little slow. And compared to regular ball lightning builds, you can still go to like relatively high levels of AoZ. You're not gonna get to like level 20, but you can get like level 15 or level 16, maybe level 17 if you have a high glyph. But that's going to be pretty much it. So this build definitely has a cap on the top, unless you are doing like crazy stuff like snapshotting or other exploit usage, or at least it's exploit usage in my eyes. So if you do that, you can easily clear tier 19s with this, I would assume. But again, I'm not using exploits like that, so I'm kind of bound to like the regular mechanics here. So compared to regular ball lightning build, this build is much more forgiving. This is a low life build, and if you want to advance into Abattoir of Zir with Sorceress, you cannot really play anything else than low life because nothing else is going to give you the required defenses. So with this build, it is much more forgiving than a regular ball lightning low life build, because if you screw up with the regular ball lightning, you're going to have much longer cooldowns than with this build. So in this build you need to have cooldowns to stay alive. So whenever you cast a skill, you're gonna get a barrier. And that barrier is protecting your low life, keeping you alive. If you play a regular build without these basic skill synergies, which basically give you a lot of extra cooldown reduction, you are at much higher risk of getting, for example, mob staffed, or like having no cooldown fast enough to get a new barrier and you will die. Or if you're like getting very high damage, let's say from the Bloodseekers, and you only have a cooldown up like every 1 or 2 seconds, you know the damage output of the Bloodseekers might be higher than your actual cooldowns to regenerate your barrier. So with this build, it's much more forgiving. You're gonna have way more cooldowns, and you are usually not gonna have any issues with staying alive. As always, you can find the links to the specific section of this guide as well as to the planner link in the description down below, so make sure to check that out if you're just looking for something specific. But as always, before we get into the detailed guide, let's just like highlight real quick how this build works and what it's all about. So in this build we are using a very high basic skill attack speed, mainly coming from the Ravenous Vampiric Power, the Moonrise Vampiric Power, the Rapid Aspect and the basic skill attack speed on our focus. This will allow us to cast roughly 5 Arclash per second, and then we make use of the Glinting Arclash passive, which reduces our cooldowns every time Arclash hits a stunned enemy. Arclash is our main attack skill, but the goal of this build is to have 100% uptime on unstable currents, and then have the Arclash actually spawn ball lightnings through unstable currents, but it will also spawn lightning spares, which boost our Conjuration mastery to like very high levels. We have like 15 to 25 Conjurations up in this build most of the time. But also spawning a lightning spare from unstable currents actually counts as using a cooldown, so this will actually also give us a barrier triggered from the protection passive. So that basically means while we have unstable currents up, we cannot die. What do we need all this barrier for? Well, we are playing a low life build. That means we take advantage of the attribute damage reduction while injured. And that means as long as we are below 30% life, which we are all the time, we can take advantage of this very high damage reduction modifier, which can roll on our pants, boots and also our amulet. Furthermore, we can use the Resilience Vampiric Power, which gives us another maximum of 50% more damage reduction while injured. All that combined together with the damage reduction on our shako, it gives us roughly 200% or a little more damage reduction, which is more than enough for this build, and basically allows us to dedicate our entire Paragon board towards offensive stats. So we don't really need to pick any defensives, and also for the nature of this barrier build, we don't really need to pick a lot of maximum life nodes as well. And since in this build we are spamming cooldowns all the time, we can also use the Ice Blades enchantment. which whenever we use a cooldown pretty much starts spawning more and more ice blades, and those ice blades then itself reduce our cooldowns, and they stack up to a very high Conjuration mastery, because on top of all the lightning spares spawned by our unstable currents, we also have a lot of ice blades active at a time, and every Conjuration giving us a 6% damage increase with the Conjuration mastery. So if you take it like this, we have more than 15 Conjurations active at a time, so that is more than 100% damage increase just from Conjuration mastery alone here. And last but not least, one more thing I want to point out is that we can use the Raiment of the Infinite armor here, which allows us to telestomp and pull all these mobs into our Ball Lightning enchants and into our Ball Lightning spawned by unstable currents. And also teleport itself has a very high lucky hit chance. So basically if you use teleport on top of a group of mobs, it will pretty much instantly spawn like 2, 3, 4, 5 or even more Ball Lightning enchants right when you telestomp them. So that's just a quick rundown for this guide. Make sure to check the description down below for the planner link or the specific sections of this guide. At the very end, I leave you footage of a tier 15 Abattoir of Zir, and let's go into the detailed sections of the guide now and start with the skill tree. So this skill bit is pretty offensively based, because we're already getting all the defensive from our low life build anyway. We have a little bit of defensive in the skill tree, but most likely this is just pure offensive stuff, right? So we are doing Arclash with the Enhanced Arclash and the Glinting Arclash to reduce our cooldowns. We are not putting more than 1 point into Arclash because the Arclash damage itself is pretty much irrelevant. And then we do not choose any core skill other than Charge Bolts into Destructive Charge Bolts. This just gives an additional 25% damage reduction for just 3 skill points, which is actually pretty nice. And then we just put 1 point into Potent Warding here to just access the next level of skills. Then we put 1 point into Flame Shield and 1 point into Enhanced Flame Shield just for the movement speed bonus, because the movement speed bonus gives us additional attack speed with Ravenous. Then we put 1 point into Teleport, 1 point into Enhanced Teleport, and 1 point into Mystical Teleport. Since we are telestomping all the time, this gives us additional hits from the Crackling Energy, which later synergizes very well with the Overflowing Energy. Then we max out Glass Cannon, and we have another 2 from our Raiment. It seems like Glass Cannon is not a huge deal. Like the 15%, you don't really feel it. So feel free to pick Glass Cannon. I didn't pick Glass Cannon at the very beginning because I was like worried that I'm getting too much damage. But it doesn't seem to be like a big deal overall. Then we put 1 point into Elemental Attunement. That's way more than enough to reset our defensive skills. Then we put 2 points into Align the Elements. Just I don't have a third one. And 3 points into Protection. This is our main barrier generator. We don't play Mana Shield here since we are not using any mana at all. And then we put 1 point into Ice Blades, 1 point into Enhanced Ice Blades, and 1 point into Summoned Ice Blades. This gives us a lot of cooldown reduction from our Ice Blade enchant. 3 points into Precision Magic for the lucky hit chance for the Ball Lightning enchant. And then we max out Conjuration Mastery, and you want to have +3 Conjuration Mastery on your amulet. This is the major damage buff in this build, since we're going to have around 15 Conjurations at least active at a time. So this is just a very strong synergy. We put 3 points into Icy Veil. I tried it without. 15% increased barrier duration doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually matters. There is times where you don't find a mob for like 3-4 seconds in those levels, and then you need the Icy Veil. Like it sometimes really is close. Like if you see yourself having like no cooldown up for like 2 seconds, you will be like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. But without Icy Veil, you're actually gonna die. So you really need it. 15% is great on the barriers itself. Then we put 1 point into Inner Flames and 3 points into Devouring Blaze. Even though we don't play any burning, this still works with Flame Shield, and we're gonna have a lot of uptime on Flame Shield. So these 3, basically 4 points really help you with killing those strong elite packs. Then we put 5 points into Ball Lightning. We completely max it out with Enhanced Ball Lightning and Mage Ball Lightning for the stun. We don't need the Crackling Energy from Wizard's Ball Lightning. We just put 1 point into Static Discharge. This is way more than enough than getting enough Crackling Energy for us, since we are using our Unstable Currents into Prime Unstable Currents and Supreme Unstable Currents. And with Supreme Unstable Currents, it doesn't consume any charges anyway, so generating Crackling Energy is really no issue here. Then we put 3 points into Causing Currents just for the extra critical strike chance, 3 points into Electrocution for the damage reduction again, and 3 points into Conduction. This again synergizes with the Ravenous Vampiric Power to give us more attack speed, because we want to have 100% increased attack speed with the lowest possible effort. So in this build, basically, we're using very, very low effort to get this high attack speed. And then, last but not least, we use the Overflowing Energy, which is the passive which allows us to have a very, very high uptime on Teleport and Unstable Currents. In higher levels of AoZ, we pretty much have like 4 or 5 elite mobs around all the time. So this is going to be very, very strong if you have many elites. And then remember, together with the Mystical Teleport, we can hit 2 additional enemies. So we stomp elites, we hit 2 additional enemies, and this is going to reduce our cooldowns like very, very fast. You're not going to have any issues keeping your cooldowns up with this. As for our skills, we use Ice Armor, and I really tried to get away without Ice Armor. So I really wanted to have Lightning Spear instead of Ice Armor to have additional conjurations when I spam my cooldowns, but you're not gonna get away without Ice Armor. Ice Armor just gives you this extra barrier, which is very, very important to keep you alive. So you can try to go without Ice Armor. I couldn't get it done. If you like somehow get it done without Ice Armor, you would choose Lightning Spear in this spot. Then we have the Ice Blades. So together with the Ice Blades enchantments, we can pretty much spam Ice Blades, which increases our Conjuration Mastery and also decreases our cooldowns a lot because we use the summoned Ice Blades here. Then Teleport is for pulling with Rainment. It gives us the extra hits on Crackling Energy. And also, as you can see in my build currently, it has a lucky hit chance of more than 100%. So this really helps with spawning the Static Ball Lightning, since we teleport all the time pretty much. Flame Shield is our main defensive ability. Also, this is going to be active like, let's say, like 50 to 70% of the time you're going to be Flame Shielded. And it also helps with the burning synergy. Even though we just use Devouring Blaze on the stronger boss packs, you pretty much just hit Flame Shield, and then they're going to be burning, and you get the Devouring Blaze bonus. So it is a nice little synergy on top of everything else. Then Arc Lash is our main basic attack, so we can attack pretty much 5 times a second with this, and this enables all the unstable currents and all the other cooldown reduction shenanigans, so I'm not going to talk anymore about this one. And then yes, unstable currents is our ultimate. We want to have it up all the time. Whenever you engage a pack of mobs, you launch unstable currents right after the teleport. That is usually the best way to engage. So jump on top of the mobs, then hit unstable currents, then start holding your left button to do the basic skills, and then pretty much just spam like your 4 abilities. In my case, I just spam Q, W, E, and R. I just spam them like crazy while holding down the left button, so I can hit with Arc Lash and spam these abilities at the same time. And then for our enchantments, as already said, we use the Ice Blades enchantment. Together with the Enchantment Master Legendary nodes, it spawns a lot of Ice Blades, which again count towards our Conjuration Mastery, but also reduce our cooldowns by a lot. And then we use the Ball Lightning enchantment. This spawns a lot of Static Ball Lightnings. As you can see, it's like a 30% lucky hit chance. So let's say we teleport with a 100% lucky hit chance bonus, right? So we teleport on top of a mob, we have a 100% lucky hit chance, and let's say we teleport on 10 mobs, we're gonna spawn like 3 Ball Lightnings with every teleport, and we can pretty much teleport like every second. So you really, really can spawn a lot of Static Ball Lightnings with the Ball Lightning enchantments and the Telestorm mechanics here. For unique items and legendary aspects, we basically go all out offensive. First of all, we play Shako, because Shako just gives you the 4 ranks to all skills, which is just like incredibly good. If you don't have shako, you will just play a regular helmet with cooldown reduction and defensives. And, you know, you maybe can play intelligence to like make up for a little bit of the lost damage of shako. And you could maybe also like play lucky hit aspect on it to even make up for some more damage here. Then we play Raiment of the Infinite. This is the Telestomp, and it also gives us a lot of extra damage, and the 2 ranks of extra glass cannon also gives us another nice damage boost, and this is mandatory for this build. You cannot play this without Raiment. Pretty much in Abattoir of Zir with Sorceress, like anything ball lightning based, you always need Raiment because you need to pull the mobs together, otherwise you're just not gonna do enough damage to AoE them down. Then the third unique item we use is the Tarasha's Ring. This is also like pretty much a no-brainer, right? We just need the high damage buff, so we get 60% because we do 4 kinds of elemental damage, since we use the Infection Vampiric Power for additional poison damage. And that is already all uniques we use in this build, so let's keep on with the legendary aspects. So we use the aspect of control, since most of the time mobs are going to be crowd controlled, so they are going to be stunned in this case. Whenever they are not stunned anymore, we use the Exploiters aspect on our boots, which gives us a 40% increased damage to Unstoppables, so that kind of makes up for the lost damage while mobs are not stunned. Then we use the aspect of Disobedience on our pants. We don't need it on our amulet. We have enough armor. As you can see, we have like around 9k base armor, which is totally enough to play just Disobedience on your pants. You're not gonna need it on your amulet, so it's fine like this. And then we use the Conceited aspect for another damage increase while we have a barrier. We use the Rapid aspect to boost our basic skill attack speed, so we can cast more Arc Lash to spawn more Ball Lightnings and more Lightning Spears. Then we use the Gravitational aspect for the Ball Lightning orbiting and also the additional Ball Lightning damage. And then last but not least, we use the Overwhelming Currents aspect. This helps us since we have a very high uptime on Unstable Currents and we pretty much attack 5 times a second. This helps us to spawn a lot of more Ball Lightnings and a lot of more Lightning Spears out of Unstable Currents. And the Lightning Spears from Unstable Currents are basically the strongest damage modificator you can get. Like, even if you would put Storm Swell on here for, I don't even know what it is, like 45% damage increase, that is not as much as spawning extra Lightning Spears. So if this spawns like 5 extra Lightning Spears, that's already gonna be more than Storm Swell will give you. For the item and stat priorities, I will show you my stats, and as always, you will find the dream stats in the planner. But for this build, actually, my items are almost perfect, I can already tell you. So, on your gloves, you want to have attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit, and main stat. This is like the most important. You don't want any like crazy stuff on it. You just want plain main stat because this is just going to give you like 5% extra damage. You don't really need the lucky hit chance. If you don't need it, you could replace it with another modifier. For example, all stats. You might even squeeze a little bit more damage out of this that way. Then on your pants, you basically want to have total armor, maximum life, damage reduction while injured, and ranks of Ball Lightning. So this is pretty much a perfect piece other than the armor here. Try to hit a very high damage reduction while injured rolled. Maximum life is actually not that important, so you don't need to reach crazy high maximum life breakpoints for this. As long as you have enough barrier up, which will protect you, it's going to be fine. And you don't need like 17 or 18k life with this. You're completely fine if you have like 14k or more life in this build. Then on your boots, very sad that you can't use Asus boots for this, but it just doesn't work. You need the damage reduction while injured from your boots, and also the damage versus unstoppable is really, really great on boots. So in the optimal boots would be intelligence, movement speed, damage reduction while injured, and the shrine buff duration, it's fine on lower tiers of AoZ, but in higher tiers of AoZ, the shrine buff duration doesn't really matter. So you probably want to have a defensive stat on here, like probably like Flame Shield would be a great stat to have on here. Then for a wand, you want to have all stats, intelligence, damage to close, and another damage roll. In this case, I have damage to stunned, which is pretty much alright. On your focus, you want to have basic skill attack speed, main stat, critical strike chance, and cooldown reduction. So this is also a very great piece. We just don't have the perfect critical strike chance, but on top of that, this is actually like a very, very nice piece. On your amulet, you want to have total armor, damage reduction while injured, mastery skills, and conjuration mastery. So again, this is pretty much the perfect piece. On your ring, you want to have critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, maximum life, and any other stat. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Lightning critical strike chance is not optimal, so any damage stat will do, but it's also not very relevant, right? You can just have any extra stat on here. And then for the unique items, for Raiment, pretty much, well, there's nothing you need to worry about, like, just get for the highest stun duration. And for your Tarasha ring, try to get the highest cooldown reduction. Resource generation doesn't matter in this build. Lucky hit chance doesn't really matter in this build. You're gonna be alright with any roll. So try to get the highest cooldown reduction and the highest unique power here. For the Vampiric Powers, you want to have Ravenous for the attack speed, and you want to have Moonrise for the attack speed. So Ravenous and Moonrise together with the movement speed bonus of Moonrise give you the 100% attack speed you need already. So you have the 15% on your gloves and you have these two Vampiric Powers. This is going to be the 100% attack speed you need. You don't need anything on top of this. Then you want to have Domination. This is just the strongest damage multiplicator I can find in any Vampiric Powers. And then you want to have Infection. Infection enables your Forced Tarasha stat, but also, since we are doing a crazy high amount of hits, this actually does a lot of damage by itself as well. And our last Vampiric Power is Resilience. This just gives us a very strong additional damage reduction because we are playing low life, and the Vampiric Powers here are pretty much, let's say, undebatable. I haven't tried the new aspect with the attack speed yet, so you might be able to get rid of Moonrise. So if you want to get rid of an aspect of a Vampiric Power here, you want to get rid of Moonrise. This is the weakest Vampiric Power in here because the damage increase on the basic spell literally doesn't matter at all. So if you can get something, get rid of Moonrise, and then you can get, for example, Feed the Coven for another 10% damage multiplicator, or you can get Sanguine Embrace for another 8% crit chance and another 10% damage reduction. Both are valid options, but again, most importantly, you want to have the 100% attack speed bonus first, and I just choose Ravenous and Moonrise to achieve that. For the Paragon board, we go all out damage. Unfortunately, in this build, we're gonna have two mandatory glyphs, which is going to be the Adapt glyph for the Mastery skill, increased area of effect, and it's also going to be the Conjurer glyph to give us 20% increased duration on our conjurations to synergize with the Conjuration Mastery. This unfortunately takes a lot of multiplicative damage from us, but I really didn't find any better way to play this, so I find these two aspects are mandatory. So let's go through this here real quick. So we use the Elementalist in the first board as pretty much always. This is 15% extra damage, like no debatable, we have to get it. And then the second board is going to be the Enchantment Master. And we take the Legendary Enchantment Master node. This is debatable. I just felt like it plays way better with the cooldown reduction to have on the Ice Blades enchant. You can probably get away without playing it, but I just felt like it is the best way. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of nodes, so pretty much everything from here until here is wasted. Yes, you get a little bit more extra or resistance, but you can get those on other like boards for like 5 nodes, and this costs like 50 nodes. So it's a high investment and you have to consider it. Then we get all these non-physical damage nodes here, and we put in our Tactician glyph here for another 10% increased damage. And let's move over to the next board. That's going to be the Static Search, and this is where we socket our Tears of Blood. We get all this nice damage to stun bonus nodes here in this board. These are actually pretty strong nodes for additive damage, and stunt is our primary crowd control condition here anyway. So, and the next board is going to be the Keyless Conduit. And we just picked this for the glyph slot, so we just picked the control glyph here with 25 dexterity, and all we want to have is really the 20% increased damage to stunned enemies here. Then we just pick up the Hunter Killer node. This is not optimal here. You could probably like modify the board a little bit to get to 530 dexterity. I felt like I didn't want to spend much more time in this, so this is alright without the 16%, but if you want to min-max, you can get another 16% here, probably. Then let's move over to the next board. That's going to be the Searing Heat. Again, we just picked the glyph socket here. This is our Conjurer glyph with 40 intelligence. Again, Conjuration damage doesn't matter at all. We just want to have the 20% increased duration to have greatly more uptime on the high stacks on Conjuration Mastery. And then let's move over to our last board. That's going to be the Frigid Fate. So we picked the Frigid Fate here for our 25% multiplicative damage increase. We don't have Vulnerable up 100% on the time. On the lower trash mobs, we don't have it up because the only way we can apply Vulnerable here is Ice Blades. But in general, it's alright. So as long as you like kill the regular mobs, they pretty much die very fast. And then you're gonna have enough Ice Blades to apply Vulnerable to all the elites. So this is up when you need it, and that it turns out to be not an issue to just rely on this Ice Blades to apply the Vulnerable. And then we just put in the Adept glyph here again with 40 intelligence. This is just for the mastery skill increased area. Yes, you get a little bit of additive damage, but it's pretty much just for the increased area of effect. So that's pretty much it for this build guide. I'm gonna leave you the full tier 15 guide. Now, this build really plays great in between level 11 and level 14. That is like a very, very good farming place for this build. Tier 15 is, as I say, you can probably push tier 16, but tier 15 is the highest I was able to push it without investing in a heavy amount of sigil powder, which I simply don't have. So I'm clothing this build for now, since I think it is like optimized to the very best extent, and I'm now going on to like a regular Ball Lightning build and see how much I can tweak out a Ball Lightning build and how far I can get, because I actually have like quite a few ideas on how to extend the current existing Ball Lightning builds even further. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you guys next time.